All right, welcome back to another episode of the Horsemen Pro Football Talk podcast. I'm Brad.
I'm Zach.
I'm Joe.
And we're glad you're here with us. We're kind of in limbo. We got a lot to talk about with a lot of developments through July with the NFL, but let's start off with the pressing question. Are we going to have a season this year?
Well, I'm hoping so, but as of the report this morning, which we're obviously before we publish this is a couple days beforehand, but I guess the Big Ten just canceled their season in college football, and the rest of the conferences are supposed to follow.
You know, what I've heard about college football is that the teams that are looking to opt out, like there are, I think it's Iowa and Nebraska in the Big Ten, they want to play. So they're looking to get sucked up by the Big 12 and just play with the Big 12 teams this year. The SEC is looking at doing the same thing, and there wasn't a whole lot of details on it, but from what it sounds like, that's what the NCAA is going to kind of promote the teams that want to keep playing to do, is just to find a place to go, try to figure out a way to squeeze into a schedule somewhere so that not everybody in a conference has to sit out just because the majority does.
I think the NCAA as a whole needs to step in and take control of what's going on. Either they need to have a full slate schedule or nobody needs to play. I mean, right now the biggest issue, in my opinion, is the liability with the players. Like pros can get away with it because everybody's on the same page. They're professionals. They make that choice. But with college, they're student athletes. So you have that liability issue with anybody getting sick or any fallout like that. And then so the NCAA needs to step up and take control. Either everybody needs to be in or everybody needs to be out, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a touchy subject, and we haven't even talked about eligibility. I mean, what do we do with these kids? You got kids coming out of high school that are coming in wanting to play, expecting seniors to bump out. Seniors are kind of getting the raw end of the deal. You know, what do you do if half your conference plays and half your conference doesn't? And so, you know, does everyone lose their eligibility? Only kids that played. If they only play, 5 games, do they lose all their eligibility? I don't know how this is all going to work. It's just it's a complete mess.
Yeah, I wish I had the details on that because I had heard about that before, how players that opt out and would have been seniors this year, if they need to go back, if they want to go try to help their draft stock, they can go back next year as basically a fifth-year senior kind of option. But I don't want to get too much into that because I don't remember all the details on it.
Yeah, and even if that's the case, though, when we look at the broad spectrum of things, and you've got thousands of kids coming out of high school who are wanting. I mean, so do they have extra scholarships? Kids up, fifth year senior had a scholarship. He comes back. Does he use his scholarship, or does he get granted a special scholarship because that scholarship should have gone to a freshman or another underclassman on the team who's trying to bump up? And then you get all these thousands of kids trying to flood these programs, and all these fifth-year seniors coming back, and everybody gets jammed up. It kills people's playing time. I mean, this is the butterfly effect. This is a long-term ripple effect that will last for years based on this information we have. That will affect. There'll be effects to this we won't ever see. Kids that could have gotten in and excelled, late bloomers that could have excelled and then gone on and hit something in the draft, got picked up by the right system and gone on to be an NFL star, may never ever even get to play in college at this point. There's just no way to tell that the fallout's going to happen for this. The interesting thing about the NFL is these players that are opting out, a lot of them, I hear a lot of people complaining about the NFL players opting out. A lot of these guys have medical history that they're concerned about, that and I don't think people are like, oh, they get paid so much money. And if I got paid, anybody can say, if I got paid that much money, I would do blah, blah, blah. But your health is more important than any amount of money, in my opinion. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Some people may think differently, but I don't. And some of these guys have, and I don't know what the conditions are. Some of you may have privileged information. You may picked up some of these stories, but some of these guys have pre-existing health conditions that put them at high risk for to get seriously ill with this. And I can't say I blame them.
Yeah, pretty much everything I heard has been either some guys, obviously the guys with their own medical conditions, or guys with pregnant wives, or just had babies, or somebody in their family has some medical issues, so they're just playing it safe. But the way I see it working out with the NFL is that there are so many low level contracts in the NFL that these guys, most of the players are going to want to play anyways, and then all these guys from practice squad and the undrafted guys and the guys didn't get picked up on free agency, they're all looking for another opportunity anyways. So I think that's why I think the NFL, and because of liability, like Zach mentioned, the pro players, they know what they're doing. They've already agreed to terms on what they're going to do. That college thing, I think since one conference decided we're not going to play, that ultimately they're all going to decide because of financial
Mhm.
repercussions, if anything, because their financials go into scholarships they can offer for the coming years too, and how to balance that out for the next however many years. I just don't see them taking that kind of liability for the kind of financial hit that they're going to be taking.
I think the liability is just going to be too much. The NCAA definitely needs to step in as a whole. I don't think you can have one conference. I mean, I think all the major conferences are going to follow suit, and then ultimately probably everybody will follow suit because you just can't have that liability with student athletes like that. There's thousands of them, whereas the NFL, there's a limited number. They know who they are, but there's significantly more people you got to take care of in college football. So I think ultimately they're going to end up canceling all the college football.
This is on topic, but it's a little bit off topic. I think organizations are like the NCAA and the NFL. They're all hesitating. It's the same reason your politicians are hesitating. You hear all this information. Now there's conspiracies that everybody's trying to lie and they're trying to do this or that. I think the bottom line here is no this hasn't been around long enough. Nobody has any idea what in the hell's really going on. And the politicians they're making stuff up, and I don't mean making stuff up as in just making stuff up, but I think that they're taking the information, the limited information we have, and they're trying to make decisions with not enough information. And with the NCAA comes out and just flat out says we're done. Then they have a riot on their hands. I mean, they have a mutiny, complete mutiny, because these universities make so much money off these games, and the television rights and everything's going on. Even smaller colleges, the gate admissions at smaller colleges they pay a lot of bills, and I so I can see why the NCAA is hesitating. They're just trying to see. We were trying to plan just a small education to drive down to the Keys a couple weeks ago, and we couldn't even do that. I mean, we waited and waited and waited, and then we didn't pull the trigger because we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if they were going to shut the Keys back down. The cases were going up, so we didn't know. And so I can see where these NCAA doesn't want to come in and cancel everything, and then all of a sudden this isn't a problem in a month. Now everything's canceled, and so then now you have the conferences stepping up. And they feel like they have to. That'll put pressure on some of the other conferences. And we can continue to talk about college, or we can move into the NFL. I'm not so sure that postponement isn't the best answer.
Well, I did read a report earlier saying that they are thinking about moving it to the spring. But if you do that, what do you do next year?
Right. That's a great point. We're going to see that with hockey and the NBA. I mean, we're going to turn right around technically, and we're going to start all over in a couple of weeks. And a couple of weeks is an exaggeration, but you get the point. Because with those guys, like with the NBA players trying to play now and then turn around and play in October and then play 8 months in a preseason, a full season, and a postseason, that's a lot of wear and tear on the legs. And these aren't 250-pound grown men smashing into each other all game long. So I don't know from an injury standpoint with the college or the NFL. moving it back like that, how that's going to work at all. Now, I know a lot of programs have spring football, right?
Hmm.
Oh, I know the NFL has talked about, there has been talk. I don't want to say that the NFL has done it. There has been talk about the NFL moving games back to maybe kicking off November 1st. But I don't know if I don't know how much credibility there is to that, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anything on it. But Adam Schefter from ESPN, I was watching him earlier, and he made a very, very solid point with the NFL. After October, the NBA will be done. Hockey will be done. If college football cancels their season for about 2 months, the only sport you will have access to on TV will be the NFL. So they'll be able to move some of their games into Friday at prime time, Saturday at prime time. Those would be big revenue numbers when it comes to advertising. So my question is that enough incentive for the NFL to continue on and having a season?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a real good point. I wonder if there's any possibility that college football and the NFL can just say, okay, so the NFL did away with preseason, right? Right now we're scheduled for what is it, September 10th kickoff?
Yeah, it's
So what would prevent the NFL from just canceling the first 3 games? If we get to that point, they come up and say, let's not cancel the season. Let's cancel the first 3 games. We'll kick off the 1st of October. Creep a little closer to October, we still got a problem. They say, okay, we'll cancel this and we'll start, the 1st of November, and just kind of go through that. I don't know if that's a possibility or not. I don't really know why it's not being talked about.
Well, can the NFL Players Association and the league agree on something like that without it dragging out like MLB?
They can't agree on anything. So,
very true.
And I it's really hard to take sides in this situation because, the players are like anybody else. I don't care how much money you make. Your bills correlate to how much money you make. But, you've got a lot of empty buildings. You've got a lot of other people who have jobs and need paid. It is a business. It is an investment. I don't know what the right answer when it comes down to who, when we cancel things, who's going to get paid and who isn't. That kind of, there is no right answer, in my opinion. All I know is that I didn't miss basketball. I don't care anymore. I used to be a huge basketball guy. I don't care anymore. I miss baseball. I like watch baseball in the summer and sitting at the bar all day, watching baseball, drinking beer on the beach, right, Jeff?
That's right.
Yeah. But it's been okay. But I have watched 90% of the NFL games since I was probably 7 years old, and this is gonna hit me really hard, as it is a lot of people. I mean, this is my thing. This is my sport, and I don't know that. Not only not football, but I just can't imagine not having any sports for another 6 months. The way after what we've gone through,
we need it. We got to have football.
You got to have it. And I think what people should be optimistic about is the fact that, even though tensions were kind of high after they signed the CBA a few months ago, they were able to get that deal done. And then they were able to get another deal done where, the players agreed to all the playing conditions, to everything they have to go through when they get to the facilities and all the everyday testing, which is probably a crazy financial burden. So I'm surprised that they came to a deal they did. But they came to a deal. There's a contract signed. Both sides have to be obligated to that side of it. And with the amount of players that would want to keep playing opposed to the ones that would be okay with not playing, I just don't think there's any way that the NFL season doesn't happen. Maybe, if they get 4 weeks in and there's maybe 15% of the NFL players have gotten COVID. Maybe they shut it down for 2 weeks or a month and then, bring it back after that. But they have contingencies for that. They have wherever the Super Bowl is this year, they have hotels in that city locked up for an extra month this year. So I'm assuming inside that agreement, there are those sorts of contingencies in case there's some kind of large outbreak in the league. But I think overall, we're going to have a full season.
So the kicker of all this is that two of my favorite teams, the Bucks and the Colts, are real Super Bowl contenders. And now we may either not have a season, or Tom Brady may have another asterisk behind his Super Bowl win. And I hate to see that. I mean, I'd like to see this, obviously, the season unfold, but I really think both these teams have a shot. And it just, if Philip Rivers isn't he's not a spring chicken. Well, neither is Tom. These guys, their clock is ticking, and for a guy that's 25, 28 or whatever, missing out a year is way different than a guy who's what is Rivers, 39?
38, yeah.
38, 39. And, Brady, what, 40, 42, something like that? I don't even know.
80.
80. So I hate to see it for those guys, but that's a personal thing. Everybody's sacrificing it, and it's just a tough call, tough situation all the way around. But anyway, let's pretend we're going to have a season anyway, shall we?
Yeah, and I think on your point with, the Colts, I think, are in a prime position that if like an outbreak does happen and they just keep rolling with the season, even if the Colts get injuries and people with COVID, we're with the last couple drafts from Chris Ballard, we're one of the deepest teams in the league now. So, there's an outbreak and they keep playing, then I think that instantly makes the Colts like the strongest team in the league.
Yeah.
It's a fair point.
It is a fair point. But ultimately, that the asterisk is going to come behind that, and you hate to see it.
Yep.
You hate to see it. All right, but anyway, let's talk about a few things. Let's talk about Dak Prescott.
Oh,
Was it
boy.
worth it?
No. Well, it's a franchise tender, so I mean, you could squeeze it out for another year or two, but I still think they just need to let him go or trade him away and stick with Andy Dalton. He can get the job done.
Yeah, this is really going to be his make or break year. Jerry Jones and that staff at the Cowboys have done a good job of putting the roster together. They should have been really good last year. They got even better coming into this year. So if he doesn't have like a 12-4 kind of year, make the playoffs, win a playoff game or two, then there's nobody in the league that's going to pay him what he's wanting. But if you want that kind of money, you got to go prove it. Patrick Mahomes wanted that kind of money. He went and proved it.
Yeah, Jared Goff went to the Super Bowl. In my opinion, that's the best comparison. They're young quarterbacks, been in the league about the same amount of time, and at least Goff has been to a Super Bowl. Prescott hasn't been that. He's a good player. I don't mean to really cut the guy down, but so what? There have been a lot of good players that have come and gone and not done anything. So
yeah, he puts the numbers up, but you can't go 8-8 with numbers every single year and try to be the top paid quarterback in the league like that. It just,
yeah,
I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, well, Lamar Jackson has the same amount of playoff appearances, and he's 4 years younger than Dak. So nobody's making excuses for Lamar.
Very true.
Yeah. Well, Lamar also plays in a way tougher division.
Yeah.
The NFC East is year after year the weakest division. It should be kind of easy to make the playoffs, but
that's an excellent point because it's a trash division for sure.
Yep.
Or has been.
Yep. Unless Carson Wentz stays healthy. Carson Wentz stays healthy, then that's the Eagles' division.
I'd agree with that. I like Carson Wentz.
I do too. So while we're talking about the Cowboys, let's talk about Aldon Smith.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, I have an opinion. Of course I do. Look, I'm ecstatic for the guy. I support anybody that turns their life around. And, there are reports that Smith has been able to do that. And so the guy deserves praise for that. But look, he's 30. He's been out of the league for 5 years, right?
Yeah, 4 or 5 years. Yep.
These guys These guys are training day after day after day. They're the best of the best. They're training. They're pushing each other. Each day they're getting better than the day before. They're not really taking days off, except for recovery days. But in a sense, they're not taking the days off. They're building upon building. This is why guys don't come back from crazy injuries. You got a guy's playing at a super high level and he gets hurt really bad. He struggles to get back to the level he was before. And if he does come back, he's probably not playing at that level. I'm rooting for the guy, but he's got a long road ahead of him. And you know what? He's with the Cowboys.
Well, if he can be any form of what he used to be over there next to DeMarcus Lawrence on that defensive line with the rest of that defense behind him, it'll be fun to watch. But like you said, it's just so much time away from the game. No matter how special of a talent you are, if you're not getting those reps every day, then it's almost all for nothing. You can be in great shape and be an amazing athlete, but to step in there with the guys that do it day after day, go to battle day after day, it's just a whole different animal on that level. So I don't know if he'll be able to acclimate to that, but if he can and he can be anything like he used to be, it'll be special to watch.
I just don't see it happening. It's so hard, especially in the professional level, to come back from something like that. It's almost like Alex Smith with the Redskins. He got that severe life-threatening injury back in 2018.
Right.
He just got cleared to play and come back. And I know Rivera's sitting there saying he's in the running for a starting quarterback. But I think he's like 36 or something like that. Coming back from that, missing a year and a half. I don't see him coming back to form and being a Pro Bowler like he is. So at the professional level, it's just so hard to come back from something like that.
The Alex Smith thing, I like Alex Smith a lot, but to put him back in a quarterback, even though he was medically cleared, behind an offensive line that's pretty shaky, it's projected to be one of the worst, is almost irresponsible. That leg is held together by rods and pins, and it's just having him be the guy. Do what he did for Patrick Mahomes. Just tutor the guy. Dwayne Haskins isn't, anybody's go-to quarterback, but you put a guy like Alex Smith behind him, teach him the game, and teach him some of the mechanics. Get the ball out quicker, stuff like that. Then I think that's more valuable than putting Alex Smith back in.
Yeah, I was gonna say the only way I could see Alex Smith being a starting quarterback again is because of Dwayne Haskins. I'm not a Dwayne Haskins fan. I don't think he's going to do very well in the NFL at all. And I think Rivera's with me on that. It seems like he doesn't want him to really be the starting quarterback, but Dan Snyder was all about him, which is kind of the same issue that they have with Jay Gruden. So I think because Dwayne Haskins isn't up to that level is the only reason Alex Smith may end up being the starting quarterback. But he would be a good teacher for Dwayne Haskins.
We can't forget about Kyle Allen, too. Ron Rivera brings him over from Carolina, filled in last year when Cam was out. So he knows kind of what Rivera likes to do. And so if anything, if Dwayne goes out, maybe they put Kyle Allen in, and Alex Smith is still just the tutor for the quarterbacks.
That's a good point. I just got on the tail end, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but can you imagine going through an injury like he went through? And you would think about that every time your pocket began to collapse. If you're not human if you don't. And it'll ultimately change what he does and how he does it. This is the thing we're talking about, because at the professional level, it's a game of, I don't even want to say inches, it's millimeters. Inches could turn the game around. Any little thing, a lot of times in an NFL game, it comes down to just a handful of plays change the entire direction of the game and cause it to end up the way it did. And so that's why you get the guys that are so good, the playmakers that make that one or two plays. So if you take a guy who's just worried about getting his legs snapped in half again, and he bails out quicker, he lays down, throws the ball away quicker. Just a split second can change the entire complexity of the game. And so I don't want to take anything away from the guy, but I'm telling you, if my pocket began to collapse and I sustain an injury like that, that's all I would be thinking about. You can't help not. So that guy too. I wish him the best, but I'm not really expecting a whole lot for him either.
Yeah, it feels like a thing, like a pride thing. He wants to go and prove that he can do it again. I just don't know if that's the best idea.
Sure, sure. And I admire that. I admire that
Oh,
wholeheartedly. And
absolutely.
I hope he pulls it off. I really do hope he pulls it off. I just think he's got the deck stacked against him.
Yeah.
So speaking of injuries, coming back from injuries and creating havoc in the league, what about Devonta Freeman?
In fantasy, he showed a lot of promise, and a couple times he balled out. But he just, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about Devonta Freeman. I think he could be a solid running back. I just don't see him being what he was. And I don't know. I hope he gets signed because he can make some plays, but he's not. I don't think he'll be like the number one back. I have to be a tandem like they were in Atlanta with Tevin Coleman.
That's exactly why I think he hasn't been signed. You know, you think about the concussions. Obviously, he's had some other injury woes outside of the concussions, but he's had a couple concussions over the past couple of years. And with any running back, that's obviously going to be an issue. But outside of the years where Tevin Coleman was sharing the backfield with him, he didn't produce the way everybody expected him to. So, you
No,
know,
he only had 3.6 yards per carry last year,
yeah,
coming off that
exactly. And
injury.
it's going down every year, it seems like, and it seems like he plays less every year also, and which is unfortunate because you know, like Zach said, he was a fantasy lover's dream there for a couple of years. But the guy just he can't stay healthy. He hasn't produced the same. He wants money to be a workhorse kind of back, but when he was the workhorse, he wasn't putting up the numbers. Kind of like the Dak situation. You're asking for this price, and teams aren't going to give it to you because you haven't put up the numbers that the other guys making that amount of money are putting up.
That's exactly right. So he's been in the league 6 years. He's only had 2 1,000-yard rushing seasons. Okay, he missed 14 games in 2018, and he only had 3.6 yards per carry in 2019. So the guy got paid. All right, he got his 5-year contract. It was $41 million or whatever it was, and then it's gone to shit. And we've seen that. I mean, this isn't how this works. We talked about that with Dak. I mean, Dak has a better argument than this guy, in my opinion. The running back, the lifespan of a running back in the NFL is extremely short. And so, by all intents and purposes, looking at the numbers, it looks like this guy's career is over. Now, plenty of guys have had a couple down years and gotten with a new team, a new program, and come out and just lit the place on fire. I don't mean that he can't do that, but when you're a guy trying to invest in a program, when you have to pay money to build a team, you have to go with what you have, and the numbers are a big part of that. And so, and on top of that, he already turned down a contract. I mean, he had one in the hand, right? Seahawks were going to give him a 1-year deal for $3 million. I think that's why his agent walked. I think his agent was like, this has got cancer written all over it, guys. This is a guy who thinks he's worth more than what he's proven. And he thinks that somebody owes him something, and he's going to hold out. He's not going to do this. He's not going to prove anything. And he got mad when people were talking about him retiring, and he lashed out about the retirement rumors. I wouldn't sign this guy. You bring a cancer into a program, and that cancer will eat through the locker room and just kill whatever momentum you're building. I think he's too high risk.
Very true.
Although it would be fun. I'm sitting here thinking, you know, if what team in the league could use a Devonta Freeman, and with the teams that have cap space to pay him what he wants to get paid, and that could use a running back that not such a workhorse, but your running back, and while you have a receiving back, him on the Chargers would be pretty fun. Having him and Austin Eckler sharing that role in the backfield with Tyrod Taylor back there being mobile, and I think that offense would be a lot of fun with both of them in it. But that's just speculation.
Yeah, and obviously, it's probably going to be a team like the Chargers. I mean, and I'm not completely down on the Chargers, but it's not going to be Kansas City or Indianapolis or New Orleans. It's not. It's going to be somebody who needs a boost somewhere and has, like you said, the cap space to bring him in. But we'll see how this plays out because he's picked up Rosehouse, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So maybe he'll get him a deal, and again, I hope this is another one that proves me wrong. I hope I'm wrong about the whole thing, and I hope he comes back out and gets a deal and has a good year.
Yep. And then one more guy that's out here asking for a crazy amount of money and hasn't put up the production is Jadeveon Clowney. Still unsigned. He's turned down contract offers. He turned down a pretty lucrative contract offer and still wants more, and nobody's willing to pay him because he doesn't put up the numbers. And actually kind of like Devontae Freeman, he's either hurt or he's underproducing, and neither of those are going to get you paid in the NFL.
Yeah, and doesn't he? He's penalty prone too, isn't he?
I actually don't know about that.
Yeah, I think the guy's got a whole lot of problems with penalties, and I don't know.
It sucks to see. It sucks to see because I was huge on Clowney. When he came out of South Carolina, he was just dominating people. So I had high hopes. I thought it was going to be a lot of fun to watch, but he's pretty much been a bust.
So I just looked it up. All right, and in the last 3 seasons, Clowney has been the NFL's most penalized player on defense, and one of the most penalized in the game period. So there you go.
Can't do that.
You can't. You can't. We've talked about that before. That penalties are lack of discipline, and lack of discipline is a cancer in the locker room. You can't have it. Good luck to that young man as well. It's hard because I don't care who you are. There's always somebody ready to replace you. Always. And I don't care who you are. You're also going to get older.
Unless you're Tom Brady.
Unless you're Tom Brady. So you got to have some humility. I haven't played in the NFL, so I'll kind of stop there. I'm not going to preach about something that I haven't done, but just in life in general, there's always somebody ready to replace you and capable. All right, so everybody's talked this kid to death, but I want to talk about Lamar Jackson. All right, so Jeff, you brought up a point that only 2 quarterbacks have started their playing career 0-2 in the playoffs and still win a Super Bowl.
Who was that?
Mr. Peyton and Eli Manning, keeping it in the family.
Keeping it in the family. That's right. Lamar Jackson. I put a list together of. Can I read this real quick? You okay with this?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
All right. So he's the youngest first-team All-Pro quarterback in league history. His 5 100-yard rushing games are the most ever by a 22-year-old quarterback. His 36 passing touchdowns are the most in a single season for a quarterback under the age of 23.
Patrick Mahomes was 23 when he threw 50. So it's like technicality.
Okay, so Jackson threw 36 under the age of 23, and Mahomes threw 50 at the age of 23. Right. We already know Mahomes is a freak. We don't need to beat that horse, right? His 113.3 season passer rating is a record high at his age. Only it kills me to say this, but only Deshaun Watson and Robert Griffin even threw above 100. No other quarterback had, and they were at 103 and 102 respectively. No other quarterback so young has enjoyed multiple games with a perfect passer rating in the same season before. It's never happened. His 1,206 rushing yards are the most of any quarterback in NFL history at any age. I can't even believe we're talking about a quarterback that ran for 1,200 yards.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, he was like the number 7 or 8 rushing leader last year in yardage.
I can't even wrap my head around it. That's ridiculous. We're talking about changing the game. His yards per carry are the second highest total for anybody aged 22 or younger in any position in NFL history, and his 7 rushing touchdowns are the third most. He's the only player in NFL history to rush for 1,000 yards and pass for 30 touchdowns in the same season. This guy's smashing ridiculous records already. It's likely going to make him only the second NFL MVP younger than 23, alongside the legendary Jim Brown. For you youngsters that don't know who Jim Brown is, I suggest you use your smartphones and Google and watch that man run. He was amazing. You gotta. So the kid's young, right? There's a couple things. Do you guys think the defenses are going to be able to stop this kid this year?
If he plays as well as he played last year, no. He has all the ability in the world. My thing with Lamar Jackson is that in the NFL, eventually it's going to catch up to him, and he may get hurt, and it may slow him down, or it could alter his career. I like watching his style of play, but as your franchise quarterback, that's high risk, high reward type play. So he has to be smart with his rushing and try to minimize the contact in order to continue to play the way he plays.
Well, if you look at him having 1,200 yards rushing last year, I don't remember ever seeing any highlight of him taking a big hit.
Because he's running past him for a touchdown.
Yeah, pretty much. And there was a story last year where somebody had asked him about his getting hurt and does he think he needs to slow it down. And he had talked about how over the years he's just learned how to not take the hits, which is why I like to spin move so much. He can kind of
Really
spin
smart.
away from that contact a little bit. And that offense that they set up, they have all the running backs. Mark Ingram, obviously, they just drafted J.K. Dobbins. They have their receivers the whole thing's built for speed, but they have brawlers up front as offensive linemen to push guys out of the way. So they have the running backs and the quarterback, and the way that offense is designed is literally set up around Lamar Jackson's skill set. So if you're trying to stop him, you got to stop the other pieces too, and you just can't stop them all. So, which is why I had him going 14-2 this year. It's just going to be so tough to stop him. You're going to have to keep up with them, which is why teams like the Chiefs are going to be the only teams that are going to have a chance to beat them. It's going to be so hard to keep up with them.
Yeah, I agree too. And with both of you, this season, the more success you have, the more film people have on you, the more they actually change their defense to stop you personally. It gets harder and harder and harder to produce for that reason. But I don't. The kid's he's got too much. It's just too much. He's got too many weapons. He's got too many personal weapons. He's got too many weapons beside him. I think if we have a season, and God, I'm praying, please, let's have one. If we have a season, these stats that I just read you, we may be reading different stats next year. He may be better than he was last year. He's only 23. He's got and to your point, Zach. So, in my opinion, as a running quarterback, he's got about 3 years to top what he's done already before he has to start changing the game. At about in the mid-20s, he's going to start slowing down a little bit. It may not be enough for us to see, but when you're talking about the biggest, strongest, fastest men in the world, every little bit counts, and every little small half step counts. So, I don't want to over exaggerate here, but I think he's got about 3 years to do more than what he's done already before he has to start to change. An injury may bring that on quicker, but the guy's still throwing touchdown passes all over the damn place. So if he gets injured or he slows down, is it going to matter? I think this kid, we've seen running quarterbacks come into this league and not adapt to the pocket, and then they kind of fizzle out. And I think I said that about this kid last year, that that I wasn't sure. We've seen running quarterbacks before, but this may be the kid. He may adapt. He may do amazing things over the next couple of years, and then start to adapt to that pocket and become even more amazing as a pocket passer later on. He certainly has the ability to do that.
And the way I see his trajectory, the way his trajectory has been since college and up until now, and where I see it going, he just keeps getting better as a passer. And because of the inevitability that he's going to slow down, or the possibility of him getting hurt, I see him going from his electric style of play and what he is now to when he's around 30 years old, he just turns into Aaron Rodgers, which is still one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. He's still going to roll around behind the line of scrimmage, maybe take off to the sideline, get a couple yards, do that kind of stuff. But later down the line, I think he has just as much capability to be great as what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I'd agree with you guys. But if you're Harbaugh, do you reel him in a little bit, or do you let him just keep going and doing his thing?
Just let it go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an NFL coach. I've never claimed to be. I could play one on TV probably, but with the coaching that I have done, I think the great coaches learn to just let their players do what they do best until they can't do it anymore. And I think you just let the kid go. You just let him go. Now, I would also think that a guy like Harbaugh, and a lot of coaches, really, I don't think Harbaugh I think he's an extremely good coach. I think he's a great coach. But I don't know that he's I don't need to quantify that. I think Harbaugh is probably having this conversation with the kid already. At some point, your legs are not going to be what they were, whether it's just, because you're getting older, injury. I would think they're already having that conversation, and they're working on his pocket passing game. But I doubt he puts a harness on it. I wouldn't.
See, I'm kind of torn between it because, you want him to be able to go out there and do his thing because he, like you said, he put up ridiculous numbers. He was the league MVP last year. They had one of the best teams in the league. They got beat by the Titans in the playoffs in the game they shouldn't have lost, but that's besides the point. But at the same time, because you have such a great team, do you want to risk him getting injured to the point where he's out for the season and then you don't have that same team? Their opportunity to win a Super Bowl is now, the next few years. So do you risk that by allowing him to go out there and make the plays, which is the team, their style, or what do you – I don't know. I'm just kind of torn between the two.
The reason I think they're fine with just letting it flow and letting what happens happen is because if they need to, they have RG3 coming off the bench, who has had his own injury problems. But if you need somebody to come in, run that exact same offense and be able to have at least some of the same athletic capabilities, then you at least have a guy. So I don't think they're worried about bringing it back at all. I think they're wanting him to push the envelope further and further until they reach the point they want to, which is winning the Super Bowl.
So here's my take. I agree with you, Jeff. What makes a player great? There are a lot of great athletes, right? We all know that. And there are a lot of great athletes. There are a lot of great athletes that never get a chance to play in the NFL or the NBA. What makes a player great? And the answer is instincts. You have to have your athleticism and all that. You have to be coached, but it's instincts. And if you go messing with a player's instincts, you cause them to think. And when you cause them to think, you delay their reaction time. And it's not something, it's like taking in basketball, taking a running point guard and then trying to force him to be a half court point guard. He doesn't know what to do. That's not who he is. He's used to run the floor and finding the seams while in the transition while everybody's moving, and then you put him in a half court set where everybody's looking at him. That's not what he does.
Boy, don't
And
we know
so,
somebody like that?
yeah, yeah, exactly. But so to my point, if Harbaugh goes, so teaching him to be a better pocket passer is and starting now is a slow process to let it develop over the years and maybe run some plays that happens. But I think taking the kid and saying you need to play this way so we don't get hurt because you've got this and that, and so my point is that I think you have a very valid point, and I'm sure there's no doubt that conversation is that is part of the conversation, right? They got to protect their asset. They're looking long term. I mean, he's a potential huge future Hall of Famer already. But I think you just got to be careful about dialing back and interrupting his instinct, because his instinct is what's making him great right now.
Very solid point.
Yeah. I like watching him. I'm not a big running quarterback fan. I haven't been with all the quarterbacks that come in the past, simply because it goes away, and I know it goes away. And I'm not sure with this kid. I'm not sure with Mahomes and this kid that I think these two are both. I think, and even Watson. God, it pains me to say that. Even Watson. I mean, all three of these guys. I'm excited to watch them. I think their best years are to come. I really do.
How did they all get stuck in the AFC?
Because the Bears don't know how to draft.
Yeah, true.
Good point. All right. What else you guys want to talk about?
Big news from a month or so ago up in New England with Cam Newton. How do you think the signing of him will improve him? Because I know when we did the division debates, when we talked about the AFC East, Jeff, you had him 1-15?
1-15, yep.
Do you think?
I just want to clarify that with their fluctuation, they got Cam, they had more games, opt-outs, all the people that opted out, they're back at 1-15.
I'm not going to throw a conspiracy out there, but it's definitely a conspiracy theory. But sounds like they're tanking for Trevor.
Yeah, you might be right. I'd like to think that I'd like to make the same argument for Cam Newton that I made for Phillip Rivers. He got so close, and it's one of those that, like Dan Marino said, Dan Marino went to the Super Bowl in his second year, and he just thought he would go back every year. He just thought it would happen, and it never happened. And Cam's got to be in the same situation. I'd like to tell you that I think Cam knows his clock is ticking, and he went to Belichick, and they're on the same page, and they're going to try to make it work. But I think the Patriots ship is sinking, purposely or not. I think these guys are opting out because nobody wants to put up with this bullshit in a season that they may not win. And when you've lost the locker room, you got problems. And so I'm not making the prediction that he's lost the locker room, but with his style and the way he is and all the reports we have of people being unhappy, look, you can put up with a lot of bullshit if you're winning. Right?
Yep.
But you don't want to put up with any bullshit if you're not winning. And I think this franchise may be this may be where great coaches die, where all of a sudden they're 8-8 or 5-12, and he gets fired in a couple of years, or he resigns, or whatever. This may literally be the signal of the end. And if that's the case, what do they know? Does Cam just taking it because it was a one-year deal and he couldn't get a deal before? And Belichick said he'd give him one. I don't know what the circumstances with it all, but I don't really have any confidence it's going to make any difference at all, like Jeff.
Yeah, and
I hope not.
If you look at kind of like you were saying, the players not wanting to have Bill Belichick getting on their ass all the time. If you look at Tampa has never really been a place where players are like, "Hey, come sign me! Hey, come sign me!" And just like that, Tom Brady goes down there. Everybody and the mom is on Twitter like, "Hey, when's one of the Buccaneers going to send me an offer?" And that it was the same way in New England. you have all these guys that come up year after year, spend 1 or 2 years there, get a ring with Tom, bail out. So with the amount of players that have decided to opt out, I'm inclined to agree with you, Brad, because I mean, just seems like if people wanted to go there to play with Tom, they were interested in playing with Tom because he's the GOAT, and they don't really care to have Bill Belichick being in.
Did you just say Tom Brady's a goat, Jeff?
He
Did
did.
I, did I hear that come out your
On
mouth?
video. It's on video.
Other people call him the GOAT. Peyton Manning is the real GOAT. I'm just going with the popular saying.
He's the GOAT with the asterisk, and Manning's the GOAT.
Multiple asterisks.
Multiple.
All right. Well, we kind of hit our time limit. The last thing I want to kind of throw in here is that I think the Vikings made a smart move. The Vikings gave Mike Zimmer a 3-year extension.
Yep, agreed.
And we talked about this before. They kind of have been on the brink, but I mean, the guy, he hasn't brought them the Holy Grail, but he's had some success. He's been in the league a long time. When he brought in Kubiak, he's got Cousins. I think he's got pieces. I just kudos to the Vikings for not screwing this up. You know, a lot of organizations would be like, "Oh, you haven't won," and whatever. I'm glad to see that they're going to put 3 more years in the guy and see what he can do.
Yep. I also want to separate topic, but the Titans signing Derrick Henry to a very favorable contract was huge for them.
Yeah, I agree.
And the Chiefs locking down Mahomes for like 20 years.
Yeah, yeah, that was a pretty solid investment. That's probably exactly what the Ravens ought to do to Jackson. Just lock him up forever. And I would imagine if the kid makes it to the Super Bowl, that's probably exactly what they'll do.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that situation goes. If he keeps having outstanding regular seasons and then gets bounced in the first game of the playoffs for every year, do they pay him that kind of money? Does he ask for that kind of money? Just doesn't seem likely at that point.
And Dak Prescott he's not even making it to the playoffs.
Yeah, well, there you go. Now we've come full circle, right back around to where we started. All right. Anything else? Is that it?
No, we're good.
All right. Well, we want to thank all of our listeners. Thanks for checking us out every week. We'd love to hear from you. Please send us a message. You can find us on Facebook, The Horsemen Pro Football Talk Podcast.
Facebook, Twitter, @Horsemen Sports.
There you go. So we'd love to hear from you. Please like, share, subscribe, and be sure to tell all of your friends. We're just a couple of Colts fans living in Southwest Florida talking about football. So thanks for checking us out, and we'll talk to you soon.
That was my horse.